Bengals training camp is almost here, which means it's time to give you 4 things I'll be watching for next week when camp opens in downtown Cincinnati. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and make sure that throughout camp you are checking Cincinnati Bengals Talk. You are going to BengalsTalk.com. It is a Sports Illustrated site for those that are wondering. Also, support our sponsors. Rivertown Inkery.com is where you should go for all of your orange and black gear this season. They have comfy tees, awesome hoodies, plenty of different Cincinnati gear that you could be looking for, whether it's FC Cincinnati stuff, Bengals stuff, Red stuff, Bearcat stuff, Xavier stuff, whatever you're looking for, they're going to have it at rivertowninkery.com. Let's get to it. Four things that I'll be watching for when training camp opens next week. The first one is something we covered on Enter the Jungle on this week's episode every Tuesday at 8 Eastern right here on CBT. And so check it out if you want more on this. But Joe Burrow, of course, I'm going to be watching Joe Burrow every second of him, how he's practicing, how he compares to last year, how often he's practicing, the frequency that he's throwing downfield, all of those things. And does he throw downfield one day and then the next day is he off? How they're managing that wrist. Of course, we're going to be paying attention to that. Heck, everyone's reacting to his haircut, which I bet you can guess how I feel about his new haircut. That being said, I talked about that. Andrew Fox Miller talked about that a lot on Into the Jungle this week. So that's number one, Joe Burrow's health, what Joe Burrow's doing. But let's get to 3 other things that I think are going to be just really high on the list. And 2 is very broad, and there's a lot of guys that fall under the umbrella. It's the emergence of the young guys. Who's going to emerge? Who's going to pop off of the field and just make everyone react? Make me react when I do our post-training camp practice reports. Like, man, DJ Turner has been awesome. Or, man, Dax Hill has really settled in at corner. Or, ooh, Chase Brown looks like RB1. Or the list goes on and on and on. Miles Murphy emerging and gives the Bengals another pass rusher that they desperately need. Or, I don't know, man, Amarius Mims really pushing Trent Brown. And you could go on and on and on. You could go with the Chris Jenkins. You could go in a bunch of different directions here. Jordan Battle pushing for that starting safety job. Emergence of young guys. I did all of that without mentioning my favorite position. Wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, starting in the slot. Jermaine Burton picking it up. Jermaine Burton making some plays downfield. Charlie Jones, Andre Yosefach, also young guys that fall under that umbrella. Emergence of young guys, something that we'll be looking for, something the Bengals are banking on. And so if they're banking on it to be successful this year, you want to start to see flashes when training camp opens next week. 3, well, it's sort of the opposite. How veterans fit. The Bengals last year, and they've gotten a lot right in free agency over the years, but last year they brought in Nick Scott, and it felt like it was going to work because he was a good guy, and it felt like he had a good head on his shoulders, and he worked his way up in Los Angeles with the Rams, and it did not work. How are these veterans going to fit? From Geno Stone to insert whatever veteran that you're questioning or you wondering. Like, I think Mike Gesicki's going to fit great. Still need to see it. I think Sheldon Rankins makes a ton of sense for this team. Still need to see it. Same thing with Geno Stone. Everything they did in free agency truly makes sense. And it's just a matter of, all right, will it fit? I thought Nick Scott made sense. You go back and you run the tape on that. I thought he made sense because in real time, it felt like it made sense. And so who fits, who doesn't? Hopefully everyone fits. And the Bengals have been really good in free agency at getting guys that can contribute, that can help them, that do help them. Trent Brown is the other one. Zach Moss is obviously one as well that they're going to be relying on. And so how the veterans fit is going to be huge. Trent Brown, biggest guy on the team, but how he plays at right tackle, how often he practices, can he stay healthy? All of those things, certainly something we'll be monitoring. And then number 4, is kind of a ground sweeping thing. But I look on paper at this offense and I see an offensive line that should be pretty darn good protecting Joe Burrow. I see a lot of young faces, new faces, the hope that they're going to be more explosive. And I see a new offensive coordinator. And I see Joe Burrow, who feels like he's matured and understands the game better than ever. So when you mix all of that together, what do you get? Well, I'll be looking for the offensive evolution. The offensive evolution. Will this Bengals offense evolve? Will they take 2 steps forward this year where they find ways to get explosive plays to Jamar Chase? They have other guys that can create explosive plays. Maybe a Chase Brown, Zach Moss 1-2 punch can create explosive plays on the ground. Mike Gesicki can do it at tight end. Jermaine Burton can do it out of the slot. You have T. Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, and suddenly that offense is cooking, especially when you have an offensive line that should be able to hold up in pass protection. Does that mean that Joe Burrow is under center more? Does that mean that we see more play action pass? Back in the day with Carson Palmer, when I was growing up, I watched Carson Palmer, and anytime they got around that Tiger logo, what happened? It was a play action deep ball. It felt like it was always the case. Play action to Rudy Johnson, deep ball to Chad, deep ball to Chris Henry. Once in a while, deep ball to TJ Hushmanzada. It happened. And so to me, and that didn't happen all the time, but it felt like it. Can you mix some of that in there? A little play action, a little under center. Can the shotgun rushing attack be explosive? That is a huge factor. If this team is going to be a 10-win team, 11-win team, 12-win team, whatever success you think they're going to have, a lot of it does hinge on the fact of whether or not they can produce explosive plays. They need to get back to that. They need to find a way to do that regularly. And I think it's going to be variety. I think it's going to be with versatility. And it's going to be with these explosive weapons that they have all over the field where, like, if Mike Gesicki, Jermaine Burton, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, if they all have like 3 or 4 explosive touchdowns on the season each, well, now you're cooking, because that's going to mean Jamar Chase has 12 touchdowns and T. Higgins has a bunch, and it's going to be really tough to stop all of those guys. And that's probably too high. But let's say Moss and Brown combined for 4 explosive touchdowns on the year. That's huge. Let's say Mike Gesicki and Tanner Hudson do the same thing at tight end. You would take that all day long. And so if you could do that, or Gesicki and Burton combined for 6 explosive touchdowns on the year, having that can be a game-changing thing. And so certainly something I'll be watching. So training camp right around the corner, watching for Joe Burrow's health, the emergence of young guys. The Bengals need it for sure. How the veterans fit that they signed in free agency, and the offensive evolution. Those are just some of the things. Obviously, there's position battles, whether it's corner, whether it's punter, all of those things that we'll be covering, and we are going to have you covered right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. So make sure you check out rivertowninkery.com. Make sure you check us out. Enter the Jungle at 8 Eastern every Tuesday right here on CBT. And for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching Cincinnati Bengals Talk.